Welcome to this dad and daughter debate. My name is Chris.
And I'm Christiana.
And today we're just going to have a little chat about, is it time to retire the Sunday service in church? So, Christiana, have you got a pension plan for the Sunday service in church? What do you think? Has it had its day?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because I still go to a Sunday morning service. And I quite like going to a Sunday morning service, but numbers are declining. Not in my church specifically. No, but
some churches are growing.
Yeah, but am I not correct in thinking that the overall pattern is that Sunday morning services numbers are declining?
I suspect you're right, statistically, and Sunday evening services seem rarer.
Yes,
especially in most of the mainstream churches in this country. But there's still a goodly number of people that go to quite a lot of church services, aren't there?
Yes, and also...
and you want to get rid of them?
No, I don't.
And deprive them of them, do you?
No, I'm not saying that you should get rid of them necessarily. I just wonder if they will naturally decline further and other types of church will take their place, maybe, one day.
But not on a Sunday? On Sunday?
Maybe. Okay. Maybe on a Sunday, but I just think that at the moment, or historically, people have the idea of church is that it happens on a Sunday morning. That's kind of wrapped up in the whole idea of what church is, and I think we're moving away from that. Within some churches, definitely.
So is it more about relevancy than it is about Sundays, whether Sundays are good or bad days?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sunday's not a bad day to have service. I just think that we're no longer thinking of church as being just the domain of a Sunday morning service, and actually in a good way, as a kind of wider idea of a community and what that looks like, and what a worshipping community, and how we explore that in other ways and other avenues.
Yeah, I agree, and I think understanding that you are a community and it's not just about going to a church service, it's about being the church, is really important at the heart of the Christian faith. And also our worship isn't confined therefore to one day of the week or one moment of the day. As individuals, our lives should always be a sacrifice of worship, as Romans chapter 12 in the Bible says, each moment of the day, whether we're on our own or with others. And as a community, we should always be part of a community of faith. We can meet together at any time of day, any point in the week, and we are church together and we can worship together. So it's not confined to Sundays. But I think I do want to make a plea for Sundays as an important day still. I think the nature of Sundays in our country has changed, and there are more people that are working, more people that are out and about on Sunday, and it would genuinely be difficult for them to get along to a service on a Sunday. So I think that's great to have the flexibility. Yes. But I think there's still something really important about, first of all, picking up the idea of the Jewish Sabbath, which of course is Saturday, not Sunday. I understand that. But the way that the early Christians almost changed the Sabbath for them from the Saturday to the Sunday, because Sunday was seen as the day of the Lord's resurrection. And so that was a key day to meet on. And I think there's still something to be said for doing that. I think what I have a massive problem with is the style and nature of what happens, which I think turns quite a number of people off. Yes. Lack of passion, lack of relevancy. And also I do wonder whether, although we've seen the closure of many afternoon and evening services in lots of churches, actually I wonder if there's some real growth to be had from afternoon and evening services, actually especially around tea time at the end of a day when people are returning home, maybe having a meal which people can gather round as well, and trying some creative worship which is fairly accessible to all ages, so that it's a coming together, a time of celebration, a gathering in that sense. And I think I'd like to see a bit more experimentation with that.
Yes, because the way that we do church, not just us, but any culture does church, is very much a cultural expression. And so the idea of church just looking like a kind of traditional service with hymns and preaching is very much a kind of idea that has grown up because of the cultural context historically in our country. And actually, a lot of people outside the church, I would say, still view church as being primarily that. And so actually, I think that it's a positive thing for us to challenge that as being the only understanding of church, because I think that, especially for people that don't go to church regularly, or it's not been a part of their lives growing up, it's something that they're aware of that happens, but it's almost like this strange this strange other world, and when you grow up in the church, you kind of take it for granted, like all the words we say and the hymns we say. But for somebody that comes from outside of that, it can be really strange, if they're not familiar. And so actually finding ways, other ways of being church and showing what the church is, I think is really important, because otherwise we can alienate people, because so many people now don't grow up as part of a church, whereas historically they would have done. So even if they, weren't necessarily, sort of didn't believe in the Christian faith, they understood culturally what the church meant, and, what you did when you stood, when you sung, and all of that. Whereas now we don't have that. So I think it's really important that we do explore other ways of being church, because we're just not in the same place as we were, several years ago, decades ago, whatever, in terms of how the church sits within wider society.
So what do you do if there's a situation where a church service, seems to be something from another culture, almost another age, and therefore isn't accessible to people of the age we live in? They can't relate to it, they don't understand what's going on, they don't understand the language, the music is something that they haven't encountered. And what do you do with that situation when you've got people perhaps within those services and within churches who value that and love that so much, and it's so precious to them? Do you just stop it, or what do you do?
No, I don't think it's either or. I think that if something becomes kind of culturally irrelevant, I think it will just naturally decline in the way that we've maybe seen. And that doesn't mean it's going to stop completely, but it maybe means that it's a little more marginal in terms of the overall life of the church. So it's no longer the kind of central defining kind of idea of worship or community or gathering. It just becomes one of several others. So you don't have to get rid of something, because there will be there will still be some people that really value it and find it to be something that has huge meaning in their life. But at the same time, it's recognizing that that group of people is probably much smaller now than it used to be, for that particular type of gathering, and then understanding that actually there's other ways of being church and doing worship and exploring faith and all these other things that don't have to look anything like that, actually. That doesn't discount the Sunday service as being something that's precious. It just means that it may be that its time as the kind of primary form of church worship is maybe coming to an end.
So that's quite painful, isn't it? It's almost like you stop investing into some of that so you can create a new investment in other things, because it's not very easy, is it, to keep 2 or 3 or 4 things going in a local situation?
I think you have to. Well, I mean, I think that is a natural part of life, is that sometimes things naturally die and then other things take their place, or new things are brought. Sometimes they don't take their place immediately. Sometimes you have to go through a period of kind of, something's ended, and you have to go through a period of time before something else grows out of it. But yeah, it is definitely a sensitive topic. But yeah, I think that you have to sometimes, it's sensitivity, and understanding, and sensitivity to the people involved as well. And it's not an easy answer, but it's just sometimes we have to accept that things will naturally run their course, and then that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that that was a bad thing. It just means that it's time for something else, maybe.
So the key might be to sensitively allow things to come to the end of their time in a right way.
Yeah, I think that it will naturally happen if it's going to happen, rather than you know, needing to force it and suddenly say, let's stop all Sunday services. I don't think anyone would suggest that. I just think that there are other forms of church that you know, that just naturally evolving, and so I just think that is something that will happen on its own, really. So.
Well, this has been a dad and daughter debate, and you may have views on this issue. Why not post your views below the video?